especially when it comes to the transportation side. With this, I want to transition over to the Consul General of Canada, Consul General Sheikh, in terms of your perspective, in terms of the international partnership. We talked a lot previously about kind of the USMCA and what that means. For Canada, what does this look like in the future for us when it comes to international partnership?
Thanks so much, Stephen, and thanks, David. As the Senator said, when David calls, everyone is around quickly to not just revel in this conversation, but also seriously engage and share best practices, but also the real challenges and opportunities that we have. And so before I begin, I wanted to thank you, of course, and also acknowledge that Canada's House and the Consulate of Canada in Los Angeles does sit on the traditional grounds of the Tongva people, and we are the latest guests of this land. That's important because as we move forward, of course, and look at the past, our Indigenous and First Nations communities need to be part of this discussion and need to be fully part of the tables where the decision makers are. What's so great about this conversation is that, of course, Canada and the US recently met at the table again in a way that they haven't. We heard all the leaders talk about that. We heard about ensuring that the US has representation and tension on the TPP. But of course, Canada and the US are two of the greatest global allies in so many ways, from a security and national defense perspective, from an international trade perspective, you mentioned that, Stephen, but of course also from the ability to motivate positive momentum and evolution when we discuss climate change, energy goals, environmental priorities. And what's so important is that recently, with the new administration and President Biden and Vice President Harris, of course, our two leaders met, the Prime Minister and the President. Among the first call, in fact, the international call was to Canada, and we're glad that tradition upholds, because it was an important setting of the tone. And that tone was set through the renewed, of course, roadmap that the US and Canada release, in which an important chapter right after the COVID pandemic, of course, conversation is climate, accelerating our climate ambitions in a unified manner. And so we're really looking forward to that because, of course, the leaders agreed, and I'm reading from a few screens here, to take a coordinated approach to accelerating progress towards sustainable, resilient, and clean energy infrastructure, including encouraging the development of cross-border clean electricity transmission. And remember, we're the top two trading partners. To advance this work, the President affirmed the goal for the United States to achieve a net zero carbon pollution-free power sector by 2035. You all know those goals. And of course, the Prime Minister reaffirmed the goal for Canada to achieve 90% non-emitting electricity by 2030. Of course, we've got our Consul General from UK here, so nice to see her. We haven't been able to see each other in person, many of us, because of COVID, but looking forward to that. As Emily said, she began in September, but of course the UK and Canada are leaders in the Powering Past Coal Alliance, which has 111 international members from a national level, a subnational, and a local level. And we're thrilled, of course, from a United States point of view, that the state of California and the city of Los Angeles are among those members. And in fact, Mayor Garcetti announced recently that the city is no longer going to be powered by coal-fired electricity as of 2025. I'm sure that was part of the many discussions this morning and ongoing. Now, the cities from Canada, like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, they share those best practices with the city of Los Angeles for a green, sustainable, and just recovery from the pandemic. And of course, we know Mayor Garcetti is the chair of C40. And so with that and other like-minded cities around the world, we're really excited, as the senator said, bullish, And that's important too. When you think about the terminology that's being used towards climate is more economic in its basic jargon. To say you're bullish on climate and climate goals harkens to what it means to be bullish on anything else, which is usually the economy. And so we're also really thrilled, as we talked about. John Kerry, of course, is sitting as the U.S. National Envoy to climate goals, and so is Mark Carney from Canada, who was, of course, influential in so many ways on the economic front, not only of Canada, but also Europe and our friends in the UK. So when Mark Carney is now leading some of our dialogue and ambitions from a united global perspective on climate, then you know the economy is part of this. And we can't get to that next phase that the senator was so positively talking about, as you said, Stephen, until the real alliance happens between those that make decisions on the economic front with those that are leading the facts and figures on the climate front. Thanks so much. Looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, Council General. And I love how you started the conversation, really talking about the diversity, equity, inclusion that we've been all so focused on. Reminding us that we're on the land of the Tongan and Gabrielino people as well. But I remember a few years ago when Prime Minister Trudeau came to Los Angeles to the Reagan Library, and his cabinet and his team is so diverse. And just recently, with our first Native American cabinet secretary, Deb Holland, being able to represent the Department of Interior, it makes us very excited about what the future looks like. So this question and this conversation needs to be integrated with sustainability as well. I want to transition now to the Consul General of Israel. We talked also a lot about the how, and I think that long-term partnership between Los Angeles and the United States with Israel, there's a lot of technology that's going back and forth, and would love to hear from Dr. Newman your perspective when it comes to the opportunities as well.
Thank you, Stephen. I'd just like to open with, first of all, appreciation for inviting me to this distinguished panel and session. Deep appreciation to VerdeXchange and David Abel for convening such important discussions on important issues for humanity. And of course, greetings to my esteemed colleagues from the UK and Canada, and to the senator who opened, and to you, Stephen. Thank you very much. Allow me to open with something general. We talk about how California and Israel will cooperate in the future and which way we're going. We should also note the trends, the global trends, in which way they are leading. And COVID-19 has accelerated in many ways the trend that began before towards innovation and ingenuity. And what I'd like to stress in my opening words is how innovation actually serves the issue of combating climate change challenges. We all agree, of course, that the climate change challenges are a severe concern, and they even endanger human survival in the long term. I think we all agree on that. We also agree that the objectives are reducing the carbon footprint in the world and mitigating greenhouse emissions and moving towards self-reliance, eradicating food shortage, all the objectives of the Millennium Goals that we all agree upon. We all agree also that renewable energy is an important factor in mitigation of emissions and reducing pollution and moving forward in that direction. What I'd like to stress here is how innovation serves these objectives. We have a new terminology which is called climate innovation. And this is a terminology which expresses the fact that technology, modern technology, can mitigate the crisis that we are facing, and innovation serves in the combating of the climate change challenges that we face. Let me give a few examples. For instance, now we're sitting in a Zoom. In normal circumstances, we would have 200, 300 people coming together, parking in the parking lot downstairs, emitting their fuels from their automobiles. We'd have a big hall with lights and all this wasted energy. So we see how, for instance, the technology of Zoom has saved a lot of waste of energy. If I take, for instance, the development now of electric planes, which we're moving from batteries with lithium, which have leakage and contamination. We're moving towards the more clean technology with the use of modern technology or storage solutions. Storage solutions are so vital in order for us to make sure that the renewable energy is actually efficient. Because if you can't store it, then when the weather changes, for instance, solar energy and things like that. So these are many, many fields that we can work on in the future. These are the trends of the future. And Israel and California are working in these fields. You know, we have an MOU between Israel and California, which was signed in 2014 between the governor and our current prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu. And several agreements were signed following the MOU, especially in the field of energy and innovation and smart fields of modern technology. And these are the fields which Israel and California are working on. I can give a few examples of even most recent collaborations, even after COVID-19, that have been signed and we're moving forward on. And they're mainly in these fields, which are the trends of the future. And my final sentence is that if we want to see where Israel and California, or the global community and California, can cooperate in the future, I would say it's the king of the future is artificial intelligence. The king of the future is innovation. And these fields like streaming services, the move from globalization to nation-state economies, the issues of remoteless, telemedicine, touchless, cybersecurity, these are the fields of the future for cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Newman. I definitely hear you when it comes to, traditionally we've been able to gather in person and being stuck in parking lots and stuck on the freeways. But in a very guilty way, I've actually been missing being stuck in the car because the ultimate result is that you get that personal handshake, you get that hug, and I've been missing that so much. I can't wait to be able to see you all in person again. But I will come back to you a little bit in terms of what you said about innovation. That is so key. We've been seeing a lot of great innovation that's been happening, but sometimes with innovation also comes new challenges. I'll give you a quick example. We're seeing that a lot of folks with the gaming and esports industry blowing up here in Los Angeles and around the world. And all these game consoles are coming online. But what that ends up is that we are seeing that game consoles are actually what they call energy vampires. They're sucking energy in such a fast rate, it's really creating a new set of problems that we have to face. So we have to basically work together on the international level to figure out how do we basically address these new challenges as well. And I'll come back to you on that. And now, last but not least, we're delighted to be joined by our neighbor and our closest partner when it comes to geography, and as well as our population here with the Consulate of Mexico. Mr. Jimenez has been working together with us for many, many years on a number of different great projects. And when it comes to sustainability and environmental goals, there's a lot that we can do together. So Carlos, would love to get your thoughts in terms of what those collaboration can look like, what the international future looks like for us between California and Los Angeles and Mexico.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for this. I don't know if you are hearing me. Maybe there is a problem. It's solved now. Thank you very much for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be with you and to talk about this issue so important at this time. California is the fifth economy in the world, and the goals to obtain in order to fulfill all the with this compromise is huge, and of course we like neighbors like. And of course we have our
I'm gonna mute Mr. Jimenez for a second. I think his connection is coming in and out. So if our administrator can do us a favor and send him a message letting him know that his connection is a bit off, and then we will come back to him when he's back. With that, I want to bring back a question that I was going to ask earlier. Dr. Newman, you talked about innovation. I'm very excited about talking about the specifics. Earlier, Minister Councillor Jory talked about the how. I think this is exactly what you guys are referring to in terms of what those examples are. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen or the potential that can be between Israel and California, Los Angeles when it comes to innovation? What are some of the trends that you're seeing in terms of the innovation?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Sure. Let me give a few examples of not potential, but actually things that are happening. Let me give a few examples of cooperation, recent cooperation between Israel and California. For instance, in the field of energy storage, I know it's not a sexy topic, but it's actually crucial. It's crucial because the more you can store energy, the more the renewable energy issue will become relevant and efficient. So, for instance, it's actually the biggest problem in the implementation of renewable energy. So, for instance, a company called VISIC Technologies from Israel has partnered with VETCO Technologies in Chino in developing dual motor drive power inverters for plug-in and battery electric vehicles. They're working on, this is the issue of storage and converting energy. For instance, Eltabar Limited, which is an Israeli company, has partnered with Adesto Technologies Corporation in Santa Clara in the development of efficient power supply for grid-connected electronic devices. I know it doesn't sound sexy, but this is important. For instance, F-Site Energy, which is an Israeli company, has partnered with Solaria Corporation in Oakland in the development of capabilities in DER, which is distributed energy resources, and energy trading. And the Technion, which is the well-known university in Israel, has partnered with Primus Power in Hayward, California, in the development of high energy density grid-scale storage batteries. So this is one example of a field of cooperation which is not potential, it's actually happening. Another field, for instance, is precise irrigation. And we all know that Israel began this issue of irrigation, but now there's a new generation, and there's a new sensoring management system, which is developed by an Israeli company called CropX, which is, it has optimization of water efficiency, saves water, saves the resources of delivering water, etc. And Netafim, which is a central irrigation company in Israel, has partnered with Polaris Energy Services in Obispo in integrated irrigation and energy management systems. Lastly, I'll mention two more examples just without naming companies. For instance, the whole field of remote diagnostics, which is so important in medicine. There are a few Israeli companies that have a set base here in California and are working in hospitals and with American partners in California. And also even in the field of agriculture and beehives and things like that, we have a lot of cooperation which makes things more efficient. So these are a few examples how modern technology and innovation are more efficient and save energy.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. That's great to hear all these great examples that you pointed to. The how is definitely already in place, and we're looking for more. I see that Councilor Jimenez is back. I want to pass the mic back to him and try this to see whether the connection is better.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Sorry for the inconvenience, but well, we are now here. I said we with California and the United States, we have a long history regarding the collaboration. We have signed many MOUs, many initiatives that we have developed through the time, and now is the time to go forward, to go more in deep in this area. We have different MOUs and initiatives like the city of Los Angeles and Mexico City that includes environment and renewables, and it's part of that is called Mexla. Maybe you are familiar with this, Stephen. And it's an opportunity to share many issues that we had in common. For example, Mexico City and Los Angeles, and an opportunity to collaborate. But also, California has many agreements and MOUs with other states of Mexico, like with Baja California, for example, and issues like share the grid, for example, and other issues related with energy are interesting to take in account. And of course, uh, we consider as well another technologies, because Mexico is improving a lot in energy, and is an opportunity to invest, for example, the people interested. And also we are working in many other issues like reforest. That is an issue that Mexico has now currently a good, a very wide program that is the biggest in size in the world at this time. And of course, there is another opportunity to collaborate in the USMCA, that California, United States, Mexico, and Canada, we are partners, and we have the confidence to take in account the neighborhood and the history, take measures in favor, or to control, to reach the goals that we have in common, because we are part of the Paris Agreement. Yeah. And well, it's all I can say about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilor Jimenez. Going back a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the future of the Olympic Games as well. So before we move forward, we have to go back a little bit. Speaking of the 2012 Olympic Games, one of the things we learned during our trade mission to London was that as London was getting ready for the 2012 Olympic Games, there were a lot of construction that was done. And one of the things that they did was they built this state-of-the-art media center for all the news reporters around the world that will be concentrated in one place. And then I think a couple months before the Olympic Games, this new technology came out called an iPad. And all of a sudden, everybody's now remote. And the money that was spent building this amazing, kind of technology device center is not utilized because folks are now working remotely. Wanted to use that as an example to set the course for the future as we're looking at the 2028 Olympic Games, as we're looking at these environmental and sustainability challenges up ahead of us. What are the trajectory? What are the trends that you're seeing that we can learn from? And this actually applies for both the UK and with Canada, as you are both Olympic countries in recent years. So, Councilor General Cloak, maybe we can start with you, and then we can go to Councilor General Shake.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad, Stephen, that you raised the Olympic Games, because, what an inspiring sporting event. I am really looking forward to when LA hosts that. And I think, the UK experience in 2012 was so important in a number of ways. It was a wonderful games. I remember vividly watching it and just experiencing it in the city. But also, I think it offered a really interesting case study in how an Olympic Games can generate sustainable growth, not just in the city that it's hosting it, but also around the country. So we in the UK, in UK PLC, stand ready to support Los Angeles in any way that is helpful to make the Olympic Games games to remember and to help that growth story. And just going back to the comments I made at the beginning, for climate and sustainability, this is a top priority for the UK, not just because it's important for the planet, which is critical, but also because of the growth opportunities of the future. The UK's 10-point plan, where we're really aiming to unleash a green industrial revolution, is around creating the jobs of the future across innovation, across sustainable transport, and a number of different areas. Our goal there is to create around 250,000 jobs from that plan. So I think there's a number of different opportunities how we can work collectively, not just in the Olympics, but more broadly. And zero emission vehicles, is a great way. Is a great example for that. LA is the future of mobility in so many ways. I think that strength you have will be critical for the Olympics, but also wider transport and infrastructure. So I think there's so many different opportunities. The Consul General for Israel also talked about the importance of innovation and tech. So I think the opportunities cross so many different areas, and I think our work for COP26 around how we can work internationally to make that a reality will be part of that growth story. So I look forward to continuing the more detailed discussions on how we can also help make that a reality for the Olympics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor General Sheikh.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Absolutely, I think it's great that you use the foundation of this forward-looking, ambitious concept and global event like the Olympics to really center our conversation here, especially as we look to a post-pandemic world, and where LA and Southern California are really going to be on a global map. And when you mention Canada's history with the Olympics, of course, Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia are so much indelibly etched on the memories of all global viewers and spectators and athletes and their families, and the countries. And what those Olympics brings, as the Consul General from the UK talked about, is this idea of innovative infrastructure and ways of thinking in the future of mobility, collecting people, distributing those people. Great conversations and statements from the Consul General, of course, of Israel. The idea of innovation and technology, thank you so much for really centering that, because in fact, whether it's Quebec's cap and trade program along with California, and those revenues being used from an innovative economy, or whether it's the innovation of, frankly, regulations and agreements like the Pacific Coast Collaborative, in which California, Oregon, Washington, and the cities at great Olympic city, Vancouver and Whistler, of course, Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles are part of that. And then, of course, the state of California and Canada as a country signed an MOU to work together on measures that reduce emissions in vehicles. We talked about that, engines and fuels. And of course, there are also Canadian companies. When you think of that, really, when you take regulation, innovative policy, technological advances, well, what's going on? Those are those small, medium enterprises that are really doing that boots on the ground kind of work that needs to be done in innovative thinking and also quick mobile ways of putting things together. And so whether you've got Canadian companies like Ballard collaborating with California on the California Fuel Cell Partnership, or whether you've got our consulate, I'll be very proud of our team and shout them out. We've launched a number of SoCal Clean Tech Express experiences in sports tech because of the infrastructure, and in clean tech because of the climate goals, and energy tech, and even ed tech and agri-tech. Because, of course, the future of food is dependent on where this climate goal, this climate conversation goes. And so it's really a chance to take climate as a priority, climate as an action, climate as a collaboration, and thinking around climate in an innovative way. And you can use technology, you can use the economy, you can use your businesses, and you can use diversity, equity, inclusion, as you talked about, Stephen, as well, not only from a cultural standpoint, but also, of course, gender equity. Female-led entrepreneurship is going to lead at the forefront because it is going to be impacted at the forefront by these goals. And so we have to really look at innovative ways of business as well, inclusion. There's innovation in so many facets, and there's collaboration in so many facets. So like Carlos mentioned, this USMCA, of course, we're working hand in hand with Mexico in activating that trade agreement because there are important environmental issues that are at stake in ensuring that global agreements like the USMCA really not only get activated on economic purpose, but also lead from a climate perspective.
Now, I'll jump in second, Consul General, your accolade and your shout out to your team. I just want to say the consulates team that are represented here have been fantastic to work with over the years. So whether it's Sue, whether it's Beryl, whether it's Carlo from the UK, whether it's Hope and Jonathan from Israel, I mean, it's been fantastic working with all your team to get the great work that's done. Speaking of the work that's been done, Dr. Newman, we're talking about AI. I want to jump back on that a little bit before we move forward. We talked about the Olympic Games, which is a huge opportunity for us. But the other thing that Consul General Cloak talked about is the transportation and mobility aspect of the future of Los Angeles is really focused on the transportation aspect. And many folks, we were talking about it in 2018, 2019, because that was all the rage, and then we forgot about it, is Measure M. You know, we've going to be generating over $120 billion in transportation fund to spend on Los Angeles over the next 30 years. And a lot of that has to do with rail connectivity and last mile, and all these new technologies are going to be available. However, if it's not connected, if AI is not a part of it, it's not going to be really the smart future that we need for smart cities that we need. We know that Israel has been taking a major leap forward when it comes to artificial intelligence. Can you talk a little bit more about that and give us some idea of what those examples can look like for us in the future? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. You know, let me open up with a true story, which is maybe sad, but actually very happy. You know, Israel tried to produce a vehicle about 30, 40 years ago. It was called the Susita, which was a total failure. It was a car that hardly got off the ground because Israel was then focusing on the hardware, was focusing on the automobile and the body of the car. We can't compete with Chevrolet and with Ford, and we can't. That's not our field. Today, Israel has more than 400 important companies in the field of mobility and auto vehicles, automation and vehicles, automobiles, which are most successful. And why? Because Israel has transferred from the hardware to the software. For instance, Mobileye, which is, I think everyone knows the Israeli company Mobileye, which is now leading the way, a pioneer in the automation of cars and digitalization, and actually the mind of a car, of the future car. We have a new company which is actually founding ground also in California, which is a company which charges electric cars while they drive. So we're talking about new companies that are coming in the field of smart mobility. You asked about transportation. This whole field of smart mobility, smart cities, technology taking control and making things more efficient. That is the future, and that is the direction. You can only imagine, you know, we're talking about, for instance, drones. Drones is a field which Israel is developing very deeply now, and it's the possibility to deliver things without having to travel. You just send a drone and it delivers. They're actually operative already in Dakota, in California. We're introducing them soon, where people can deliver things. They don't need to get into their car and drive. They just send a drone. So the imagination is amazing. We can go in all directions.
That's Dr. Newman. I recently, not long ago, picked up golf. I can't wait for a drone to deliver my snacks to me on the golf course. I know we're running a bit over, but this is such a great conversation. I want to ask one last question before we go to the closeout. This question goes to Consul Jimenez. You know, your responsibility is great. With one of the largest international population located right here in Los Angeles, your responsibility and your office responsibility covers a great area. And there are a lot of interaction between the companies that are going back and forth. Can you, from your perspective, what's the advice that you would give for local companies that are looking to work with Mexico? How should we, what would your recommendation be when it comes to these opportunities that are available? What are some of the tactical things that they can think about?
Well, there are many opportunities. Depends on the sector, depends on the interest of the company, depends on the objectives. But you have here at the consulate when one part in your proposal to go to Mexico in order to make contact, in order to know more about the states, the clusters, the opportunities. If you're interested in invest, for example, we can, you have the know-how, but we have the know-who, and we can help you in order to go forward in this sense. And of course, you have the support of World Trade Center Los Angeles, that is a very important partner, and have a knowledge and the context as well. And we can make easy the path, the way to go to Mexico, to know and to go to Mexico. And I think the main the main advisement that I can do is to extend the knowledge, to know the neighbor, to know the possibilities, to go in deep about extend bridges, for example. You have 2.5 hours from Los Angeles, the border with Mexico, and maybe you don't know what is happening there, what are the possibilities to go there and to take advantage of the opportunities, to make business, to make partnerships, to sell, to buy. But we can help you in this objective. We can put in contact with the correct end in your objectives, and there is a world of opportunities in the sense of energy, for example, in the sense of manufacturing and another sectors. We can help you in this, and we are in contact a lot with Stephen to reach this proposal.
That's a great plug for us, and thank you, Councilor Jimenez. I know that we're over time, and I know that the Consul Generals actually have other engagements. So that's a great plug, because we have a lot of consulates. Again, we have the world's third largest consular corps with over 100 countries represented, and each of the consulates here are here to basically provide their services to link you directly with their country as well. So with that, I want to thank each of the Consul General Sheikh, Consul General Cloak, Consul General Newman, and also Consul Jimenez for joining us on this really great conversation. Learned a lot today, and I'm going to pass it back to David Abel.
Well, I just want to second what Stephen has said. It's been great collaborating with the World Trade Center of LA and to having our Consular Corps part of this program, and the Congressman and Mickey Cantor as well. And we hope to do this as we've done every year. And next year should be even more exciting than this year, because we'll have a year of working out how to do this. So thank you all for being a part of this. We'll post this Zoom webinar online in about a week. So again, as I've noted earlier, for those who stopped watching Saturday Night Live reviews, they can watch this Zoom link and catch up with what's happening with our trade agreements and climate change. So again, thank you very, very much. Thank you, our listeners, and we hope to meet all again and to see progress made on these fronts. Ciao.